Welcome to the Writing Gym Podcast. We're here to pump up your writing. And now your host, Andy Brixey, personal trainer at the Writing Gym.
Welcome back to How to Find the Ideal Writing Internship, where our resident writing coach, Annalisa Parent, coaches college sophomore Samantha Palumbo through choosing the best internship for an English major. Don't forget to download the freebie at writing-gym.com/weekly writing reps for a step-by-step process to guide you through finding the ideal writing internship for you. So, Annalisa, what are the keys to finding an awesome internship?
But again, I just want to repeat that it really comes down to your goals. And so I think that the more time you can spend really focusing in on what is it that I want from this. And sometimes it's hard, I think, for us to know what it is that we want. But if you think about, who am I 5 years from now? What are the things that I can do now? 5 years from now, me, what experiences do I want her to have had? And where do I want to be? So, if 5 years from now you're a high school teacher and you're running the school newspaper, what kinds of experiences would have been helpful to you for that? If you don't become an educator and you decide to become a writer, what kinds of writing might be interesting to you, right? So just kind of thinking about, and I think that your gut really can help you here, right? Because when we think about our future, like if I think, okay, 5 years from now, I'm going to work on Wall Street. Like that feels yucky in my gut because that's not who I am. That's not true to me. If I say 5 years from now, I've published my third book, that feels really good to me because that's who I am. I'm a writer and I want to do that. I think that you can even give them some weight and there's all kinds of systems out there on kind of like planning your future. But one of the really cool ones that I heard, this philosophy professor that I knew had this very complicated formula on how to make decisions about your future, which I won't get into. But one of the things that you can maybe take away from that very complicated system is just giving things a rating. Right. So if I use like hearts, because I'm kind of thinking about a heart quality, like the Wall Street scenario in my life gets 0 hearts. And the publishing scenario in my life gets 5 hearts. And, writing a story that ends up on the front page of a big newspaper, it gets 3 hearts. Right. So I'm just kind of like thinking about like how important are these things are, because all of those, any of those could be potentially cool for any given person. But it's just giving it a ranking for you and thinking about all of the different scenarios. And the advantage that you have, Samantha, is that I assume your school has some sort of library or repository of what the opportunities are that are available to you. So once you sort of cull, your top 20 or your top 25, if you give them kind of heart rankings thinking about your future, then you've got a system. And then you only take your 5s, and out of your 5s you re-rank. And, I think that's a way to kind of systematically approach the whole thing without making it too complicated and getting lost in that whir of, one, all of the opportunities that there are out there in the world for writers, and 2, the just general that college is of like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
As far as applying for internships go, do the internships that you're interested in, I don't know if you've looked, Samantha, do any of them require specific writing samples or things like that? And Annalisa, could you give her some feedback on like how to actually apply? Like what should your writing samples look like if they require them? If they don't, how do you sell yourself in this kind of situation?
Sure. So I think that as far as writing samples go, the advice that I have there is obviously you want your writing sample to be in tip-top shape. So definitely getting an editor to look at it through the writing center on your campus or through the English department, however that works, to really make sure, of course, that there are no typos in it. Please do not submit something that has any typos in it at all. But also just content-wise to make sure that it fits. And the second thing that will, believe it or not, put you at the top of the list is actually following the directions that they give for the writing sample. So if they ask for something that's journalism and you send them a short story, or if they ask for a short story and you send them something that's journalism, believe it or not, people do this. They just don't follow the submission guidelines. So you want to make sure that whatever it is they're asking for, if they say 3 pages, don't send them 4. They say double space, don't send it single space. Just following those very simple directions, because they're judging you, and I'm sorry, they are judging you based on your ability to follow those directions. And they don't want people to work for them who can't follow basic directions. That's kind of a principle of being an employee, is that they can set a task and you can do it. So being able to follow whatever their guidelines are is automatically going to put you at the top of their list, and making sure that it's in as tip-top shape as it can be. Does that make sense, Samantha?
Yeah, it does. So what do you think would hold more weight depending on what they want? So things that I've had published in my paper, or my academic type of writing. What do you think's more important?
I think if they just say, we want a writing sample, and they give you no guidelines whatsoever, and they give you no page limits. I mean, if it were me, I'd send one of each. So I'd send my very best newspaper article, my very best paper, right? Because then they get an idea of who you are as a writer. But I would also target it to what the thing is that you're applying for. If you're applying for a newspaper job, then it makes very clear sense to send them a newspaper article. If you're applying for an internship at a law firm and they want a writing sample, it might make more sense that you can show that you can support an argument. And so you would send some type of literary analysis that you'd written or something like that. So I think really targeting it to your audience and what kind of writing you might be doing in that position, and submitting something that shows that you've at least got some experience in that.
Okay.
He had a quick question about, what is the best form of experience to have on a resume when you're trying to start your career in writing? So I guess, in your case, when you're building your resume to start, post-college applying to jobs, what's something that employers really want to see?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that it really closely tied to the type of employee that any particular organization is looking for. And so, as hokey as it might sound, I think that as any college student is thinking about an internship, the very best advice that I can give is to be true to who you are. Because if you're true to who you are, you're going to choose opportunities that are true to your own interests, that are going to lead to a career that's true to who you are. And if that's not interesting to you and you just want to make the most money and you don't care, what that means or what you have to do, then that's very different. That's a very different goal to choose. And if you have priorities like that, then it's very important to understand what, so if you want to make the very most money, let's say that you decide to be a lawyer and you want to work in the very top law firm, then it makes sense. You're just going to do your research to find what it is that particular thing is looking for. But if you want to live a heartfelt life where you're getting enjoyment from your employment, which clearly I have a bias towards, as you can tell from the way that I'm talking, if you choose an internship in a place that you walk in and you say, wow, yeah, the vibe of this place is just my vibe, then your life is going to continue down that vibe because that's who you are and that resonates with you, and you're going to continue to choose those places, and those kind of places are going to continue to be drawn to you because that's who you are. So is there a best internship? Again, it comes back to your goals. So the best internship for me may not be the best internship for you, because where I want to end up versus where you want to end up may not be the same. So again, going back to those goals, If you want to end up working at the New York Times in 10 years, the internship that you choose is very different from, I'm not really sure what I want to do, but I'd really like to love what I'm doing 10 years from now. Those are two very different life goals. So those are the things to take into consideration as you decide what looks best, because what looks best is going to determine and be determined by where you want to be.
Okay.
That was kind of a woo-woo answer, but I'm going with it. That's my answer.
I like it.
Samantha, is there anything that you can think of that we haven't really covered yet? Anything that, if there's a specific internship that you had in mind and you weren't sure how to go about it or anything like that?
I thought of one like a couple minutes ago. So, what's your idea? So, have you seen on Facebook and stuff how they have like the Odyssey online and stuff like that, and people can, it's not like a blog, but people can write articles and publish them to that thing, and it's like kind of creates some like samples for them. And I know a lot of people think that it's like bogus journalism and it doesn't like hold enough if you were like applying to a job or something. But do you think having that or whatever would be do you think that would like help or hurt my chances if it's not seen as like very like important or like worth writing for, you know what I mean?
Well, this is just my opinion, so take it for what it's worth. I think that there are aspects of quality writing, and quality writing rarely happens overnight. Quality writing happens like anything else that we as humans do well. It happens because we practice, and it happens because we have discipline, and it happens because we come back and we do it over and over and over again, even when it hurts. Like anything else. And any opportunity that gives us practice, in my mind, is a good thing. And anything that gives us practice where we get feedback is an even better thing, right? And so anytime that I'm publishing my work and I'm putting it out in the world and someone's giving me feedback, this article really changed my life. This article is completely bogus. Why? Tell me why. Okay, like let's talk about this and let's fix it, right? So now I've gotten some good feedback and some feedback that will help me grow as a writer, right? So my opinion is that any time that you can not only practice the craft of writing, but practice the craft of writing to put in front of an actual real audience, then you've done what writers do. And if you're doing what writers do, then you're working toward your future. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with Annalisa on that one. I wrote for a tiny little online magazine, like listicles, like 10 sci-fi movies that you should probably watch again. I wrote an article about how like The Dark Crystal shaped my childhood because it was like my favorite movie growing up. And even though those weren't hard-hitting heavy news or something that was incredibly important for people to read to move on with their day, it gave me experience, it gave me a few published articles, and it also gave me connections, because on each of those little companies, on each of those little things is somebody who's reading your article. It's somebody who sees something that they like in you, and that's another networking opportunity for a possible job in the future, which you can't ever turn down.
Yeah. See, that all makes sense. I just was wondering because one of my professors kind of puts it down a lot because like anyone can publish an article with like the Odyssey or with BuzzFeed or whatever. So I was just wondering like your stance on it.
We're not going to call it academia, I mean, I think that it lives in the same dichotomy that Wikipedia and the real encyclopedia live in, right? So it's not vetted, it's not edited, and there can be all kinds of junk on those kind of websites. But we don't care about that. We care about your experience growing as a writer to write actual writing for an audience, right? That's the goal. So the other thing, the other stuff that exists around that doesn't matter as much. Like
Yeah.
if you call me up and many, many years from now, like you're 45 years old and you're still writing for Odyssey Online and wishing you could be a real writer, like that might be a different conversation, Samantha. But I don't think that's what that's what you're looking to do. I think you're looking to grow, and you've got to start somewhere if you're going to grow. And I think that the Odyssey Online is specifically targeted to college students who want to start to create something.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with BuzzFeed too. And the thing about, like, I have friends who work at BuzzFeed in the city, in New York City, where I live actually, and not everybody gets published on BuzzFeed. In order to even get on the site in one of their, silly little articles, like, you have to submit to have a team of editors read your stuff over and over and over again. So, like, even though, you don't need to know the 10 best restaurants for cheesecake, somebody actually put a ton of work into that article, and 20 people read about it before it finally hit, your Facebook feed. And it puts your name out there as well. It gives you an opportunity to, when you apply for internships, when you do this stuff, to say, hey, actually, I was published on BuzzFeed. I was published on the Odyssey Online, and those kind of opportunities, no experience is bad experience.
That's a really good point, Andy, because, in this day and age, I think most employers are Googling their potential employees. And, if I Google your name, Samantha, as a potential employee, and the first 2 pages that come up are articles that you wrote, and they're not bawdy and, I don't know, contentious, then, that might be impressive to a potential employer. I'm sure there are a lot of other things that could come up for potential employees. So I 2 pages of published material, even if it's in a publication that's not quite as worthy as some others, might be a good thing.
Exactly. Are there any, Annalisa, final tips and tricks that you can come up with for, people who are out there, not just Samantha, but anybody who's searching for an internship in this kind of field, anything that you think is really useful information?
I mean, I think that we've covered it. I'm just going to come back once again to the idea of goals, which is not only important to internships. I mean, it's important to life in general, but it's also important to a writer who wants to get published, or to a writer who wants to start something and isn't sure what to start or where to start. So really, starting any kind of endeavor that we go through in our writing and in our lives with what are my goals and where do I want to be in 5 years, I think is the only nugget of wisdom that I have to offer when it comes to this. I really believe that. It's how I live my life, and I feel like it's worked out pretty well.
You actually had a couple takeaways, because I took a few notes while you guys were talking.
Oh, I'm impressed.
Thank you. A+ student here.
Yeah.
That nugget of information wasn't the only fantastic thing that I wrote down. The first thing was always start with your goals. The other part of it was listening to your heart and your gut. Just when you talk about your goals and what you want to do, you know instantly whether or not it's something that you want to pursue or something that you would rather not do. Along those lines, get organized. Make a list of your choices, your opportunities, and rank them to really help you streamline and decide what you want to do. And make sure that you take every chance to practice your work, with, something like BuzzFeed, the Odyssey Online. Any opportunity is a good one.
Thanks for writing those down, Andy.
Thanks. You're welcome.
And thanks, Samantha, for reaching out with your questions, for asking your questions, and for accepting our invitation to be with us today on this Q&A. It's been really great talking to you about your future, and I can't wait to hear about the amazing things that you decide to do.
Well, thank you for answering all my questions.
Now
I can successfully search.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for participating with this. Everyone who's watching, you can find out more about Annalisa at datewiththemuse.com. The writing coach extraordinaire offers one-on-one coaching sessions, phone calls, anything that you can possibly need. She is there for you. And thank you all so much for participating in this fantastic interview.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annalisa, for more of your great writing advice. Annalisa is the resident writing coach in the Writing Gym. She helps writers start, finish, and bring to publication writing in all genres. And, in my opinion, she's the best at what she does. Also, if you love the Writing Gym podcast, we'd love to have you join us in the Writing Gym. There's no place better than the Writing Gym to get your writing whipped into shape. We have exercises for all of your writing problems, and there aren't even crunches required. We even have a personal trainer, me, to help keep you accountable to your writing goals. While I won't make you do squats, I will make sure your punctuation is correct. To see what we're up to this week, go to writing-gym.com. Don't forget the dash. Thank you so much for joining us to pump up your writing here on the Writing Gym podcast. Make sure and leave us a fantastic rating if you enjoyed the podcast. And don't forget to let us know how this interview helped your writing journey in the comments section. Your 5-star rating will help other writers find this fastest growing podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes and download all of the takeaways and this week's freebie of a step-by-step process to finding the best writing internship for you at www.writing-gym.com/weekly-writing-reps. And speaking of freebies, don't forget to enter our contest at www.writing-gym.com/contest to win a free writing coaching session with Annalisa. The secret code this week is Herman Melville. Happy writing!
This has been the Writing Gym podcast with Andy Brixey and Annalisa Parent. To join the Writing Gym, visit www.writing-gym.com.